Right, boys, have you ever had this experience where you're having a conversation with somebody and you just zone out? You can't focus on what they're saying. Now, an example of this would be, say you've just started a new job, and within the first kind of few days, somebody will walk you around and show you everything you need to know about this job. So this is like the most important few days of this job, because when somebody's teaching you the ropes, they kind of go through it once properly, and then after that you got to figure it out on your own. So have you ever had it where they're like telling you everything you need to know, and you're thinking, I really need to know this. This is important information that I'm going to have to ask again to know this. Like, he's telling me now, so I should be retaining this information. And then you just zone out. Your mind's like, knows it needs to know, but it just wanders off. Or this could be important conversations, or it could even be like on a date. You're thinking, I want to be on a date with this person and I want to show interest, but for some reason you just zone out. Or it could be when you're studying. You might get it when you read a book and you read the line and you read it and you retained absolutely none of the information, and then you reread it and you end up rereading the same line about 3 times before it goes in, and even then the information might not actually go in. This is a problem with your attention span and your ability to focus. So the ability to focus has diminished recently because of social media and the way we consume information. So we would have read books, and it takes quite a bit of effort and focus to actually read a book and retain the information out of a book. Compare that to a 10-second TikTok video or a 5-minute YouTube video with the same information. It's a totally different way of receiving the information. You need to develop the ability to maintain focus, and this allows you to be more present and actually experience reality as it is. Because what happens is, when somebody's trying to tell you information or you're having a conversation and your mind wanders, you're no longer in reality. You're in a constructed reality in your own mind. So you might be having an important conversation, or at least to the other person it's very important, and your mind's wandering thinking, oh, I really want to check my phone, but that would be rude. And a lot of people nowadays, like especially younger people, just check their phones mid-conversation, totally not present, and it's a very rude, disrespectful way of conducting yourself. But it's in your mind, and you really feel the urge and the need to check your phone over engaging in the conversation. You might be slightly bored by what the person's saying, and straight away you have another option. Whereas before, we would have been just fully engaged. You didn't have another option. I can just check my phone and completely disengage from the conversation and do something more engaging. So to combat this, if you recognize that most people do this, that kind of sets the bar of people's attention span and how committed people are to the present moment and to conversations and things like that. You can set yourself apart by practicing certain techniques, and the techniques we're going to talk about are meditation and mindfulness. Now, mindfulness is a form of meditation, but I see that there's quite a distinct difference, and this is a very powerful tool that seems a little bit hard to explain, and when people explain it, they use very deep mystical terminology, and it's very simple. It's a simple practical practice that is going to help you improve your attention span and improve your presence. So if you do this, you're going to be able to engage in activities that are quite cognitively demanding and do it with more ease and for longer. So instead of reading one line of a book, zoning out and putting the book down, you would be able to read the book for an hour and retain a lot of the information. When you're having a conversation or engaging with somebody, you can be fully present, and that's very attractive. It's very attractive when people are present, and you'll find this if you have a conversation. I spoke about conversations before where people aren't really there, they're just running a script and they don't actually care about what you have to say. every now and then, very rarely, you will come across somebody who is fully present. They're fully kind of committed to what you're talking about, and they're listening, and it's very attractive. And if you're going on a date or something like that, just the act of being present is very attractive, and it's better for your own mental health. So this is kind of like a fundamental teaching in Buddhism, which is you suffer to the degree that you desire. And another way of saying that is you are as happy, or you are unhappy to the degree that reality is different from how you think it should be. So if reality is here and how you think reality should be is here, you don't desire anything other than what is, and therefore you're not unhappy. So suffering is different from pain. Pain is a physical sensation that you might experience. Suffering is almost a choice. Suffering is a mental sensation associated with the pain. Now, some people can experience pain and zero suffering because they're not trying to expect reality to be different than what it is. Suffering comes when you resist the present moment. And this comes back to what we're talking about, which is a lack of focus is a lack of being able to be in reality. So, and you suffer because of it. The conversation suffers, or your ability to learn these lessons from your new job suffers, or your ability to read the book suffers. So that's where the suffering comes in. So in order to meditate, it's a focus practice. It's the ability to focus. And you will realise how poor you are at focusing when you start practicing meditation. So we'll talk about meditation first. So the simple practice is sit comfortably or lie down, just pick a position where you're comfortable and focus on the breath. There's a few kinds of meditation. I'll talk about Transcendental meditation in a minute, but just focus on the breath. I usually pick two anchors of focus. I focus on the breath because it's constant. As you feel the sensation as you breathe in. I usually breathe in through the nose, out through the nose. So that is a constant sensation, constant inhale and exhale that you can focus on. And then I'll have a second anchor, which is usually what I can hear. So it's the breath and what I can hear. And if I'm doing this meditation in my room, I'll be able to feel the sensation of the air coming in and out of my nose, and I'll be able to hear the birds outside because my house backs onto this forest, so I can hear the birds or whatever noise is going on with the woods. You'll commit to do that, and in the beginning I tried to commit to like 20 minutes or half an hour, and that's absolutely pointless because it's so difficult. You'll sit down, you'll start your meditation, and within 4 seconds you're gone. You're already in your mind thinking about something, and that is kind of like the first step. So meditation basically lasts for as long as your focus lasts, and you'll realize how short your attention span is. So you've set the intention. There are strict parameters to meditating. Whatever you choose, there are multiple different meditations, but say you choose this one. The parameter is I'm successfully meditating all the time that I'm focused on my breath and what I can hear outside. So you'll do that. Within 3 breaths, you'll be thinking, oh, my car insurance is due. I wonder how much that's going to be. And then you'll think, well, if it's more than £500, I can't afford it. Your thoughts will start to snowball. And you will realise after about 2 minutes, wait, I might be sat here in the meditation posture, but I haven't meditated because my mind has wandered. So that shows you how poor your attention span is. And at that point, normally, at least for me, that was the point which I started getting annoyed and pissed off that I couldn't meditate. But you are meditating, so that's like reps at the gym. You don't go to the gym, you want to get a big chest, do 1 bench press rep, and then think, oh, why is it not done? You do multiple reps and you do multiple sets. So consider that 1 rep and then come back to it. Right, I've noticed my mind has wandered, and then back to the breath, back to what I can hear. And this is where mindfulness comes in, because the first part is meditation. Meditation is the practice of focus on the breath, focus on what you can hear. Mindfulness is recognizing what's going on in your mind. So to illustrate this, imagine a motorway full of traffic and there's a traffic jam. If you're sat in your car and the car in front of you is kind of pulling forward and then leaving a big gap, and it's something about the car in front of you is annoying you, you are in the traffic and you are pissed off with that car in front. So you're just going with the train of thought. You're in that zone. That's just everyday reality. That's a stream of thoughts, and some of them are beneficial, some aren't. Mindfulness is, now imagine that you're sat at the side of the road, kind of, you know how motorways kind of go through, sometimes there'll be fields at either side. So you're just sat in a field looking at the traffic, and you can observe yourself or another person in that car getting annoyed with the car in front. But you're sat from like a third person perspective, and it doesn't annoy you. You're not in the traffic. We can do that with our thoughts. So that's mindfulness. You might have a thought that is unresourceful to you, and it winds you up or causes distress. And you can also observe that. So you've got the thinker and then the observer. So just like the traffic doesn't annoy you when you're sat at the side of the road. So these two practices go together. So you practice meditation, whatever the parameters are that you set. For me, it's focus on the breath and focus on what I can hear. Then, after a very short period of time, and it'll be way shorter than you think you're just going to sit down and meditate for 20 minutes. That's not how it works. You meditate until you become mindful, and then you realise, oh wait, I'm thinking about what I've got to do for work tomorrow, or I'm thinking about what I'm going to eat for dinner tonight. And you'll notice as well the quality of the thought. Is it positive or is it negative? And usually it's problems. It's problems you're thinking about so you can anticipate them and solve them. And then, now you're mindful, you can start adjusting the thoughts. So, and that's separate from meditation because now you're thinking again. So, the actual conclusion you want to come to, which is the lack of suffering, is when you just live wholly in reality. So that's enlightenment. Enlightenment is a kind of a state of meditation that carries on forever. And for most people, that's unattainable. What you are aiming for is the ability to focus when you set your mind to it, and then the ability to choose beneficial thoughts when you recognize that there are unhelpful thoughts. So that's meditation and mindfulness. And I would recommend set the practice and aim for 20 minutes a day, but you're not trying to get 20 minutes of consistent focus. It's just 20 minutes of I'm focusing on my breath, focusing on what I can hear. I'm doing that correctly. Then I get a thought. Then you recognize the thought and you go back to it. And it's a constant, it's just reps and reps. And that's successful meditation. Don't think that that's like useless practice. And the more you do that, that will spill over into your everyday life. So the ability to focus in meditation translates into your ability to focus when reading a book, or when listening to instructions at a new job, or when engaging in a conversation. And it's your ability to accept reality as it is. When you're meditating, you might realise, sat in this posture, now my leg's gone numb a little bit. But you've committed to the 20 minutes and you can just accept reality as it is. You're not trying to change it. So that's meditation and mindfulness. And there's another form of meditation which is called Transcendental meditation, which I find really beneficial for kind of health in the body. So if you've got anything you're trying to heal in the body or in the mind, this is beneficial. And you're basically focusing and accepting reality as it is in a different way than focusing on your breath. So you're not actually focusing on your breath or on what you can hear. And I'll give an analogy. This is the only way I can really describe it. Imagine you lay down in bed. One day you might lay down and you have all these thoughts in your head and you're a bit stressed and you don't notice the comfort of the bed. Well, if you actually on the same day you lay down and then you realise you're all in your head, you can't even notice it. Or on another day, for example, you go for a long hike or you've been working hard and stood up all day. When you lay down in bed, you really feel how comfortable the bed is. You can notice it and you can kind of ease into that. So you can go, oh, this is so comfortable. And it continues to get more and more comfortable and more relaxing the more you recognize it. Transcendental meditation is kind of relaxing into the present moment. You're not really focused on anything. You're just, every breath you become more and more relaxed. And that's a lack of thinking. You're not thinking this is relaxing. You're just breathing into it. So that's transcendental meditation. And I find it easier than focusing on my breath because you can just relax into it and it kind of grows, the feeling grows. Whereas when you're focusing on your breath, there is always another thought that is trying to compete and come in. So that's the practice of meditation and mindfulness. And something worth noting is even the pros, you can get as good as like a Buddhist monk at this. I injured my hand with a chainsaw and had to take some time off work, so I decided, this was like a last minute decision, I drove up to a monastery in Scotland. It's called Samye Ling Monastery and it is Kagyu Tibetan Buddhist monks that live there. And I went for a 1-week meditation retreat, and when I went there you kind of live there and it's complete silence and the monk teaches meditation. And what I learned, I actually made a bit of a mistake when I was there because it was kind of a big hall, meditation hall, beautiful monastery, very like intricate decorations. And there was a monk, I can't remember his first name, but it's Rinpoche. His last name is Rinpoche, and that's quite a prestigious lineage in Tibetan Buddhism. And he was Tibetan and he was speaking through a translator and he was basically instructing us on how to meditate. And the whole time he sat in the middle, and over in the back there was what looked like a monk with an orange robe sat meditating. And I learnt more from this monk, right? Because I was thinking how disciplined that monk is, if I can just replicate what he's doing. So for like 5 days I'd turn up, I'd listen to what the monk was saying, and then I'd observe this monk in the back, and I just thought it was one of the monk bros just doing his thing, because he obviously doesn't need to listen to the monk, he just meditates. I didn't realise it was a statue. I was looking at this statue being all inspired. He never moved a muscle, he was in deep meditation. And yeah, it turns out it was a statue. Because that's what I was trying to attain. I was trying to attain perfection, which is what this statue was doing. And everything the monk was saying was not perfection. He was basically saying, I've been meditating in a cave for about 40 years and I've reached no further attainment than you have. Meditation is just picking a strategy of focus, doing it until you get a thought and then refocus. And he's still doing that practice. So you can get to the same level as a Buddhist monk, essentially. And I found that very beneficial, because before I was trying to achieve this unattainable perfection, and that's not what we're going for. It is literally a very practical thing you implement to improve focus and improve presence. So I hope that helps. I haven't actually spoke that much about meditation on this channel, and it is very beneficial and it enhances everything. It's a practice that spills over. So when you get good at meditating during your daily practice, or you become mindful, you'll become mindful in conversations, and then you'll become mindful when you're reading a book or engaging in a conversation, and it kind of grows. The more you do it, it grows into other areas of your life, and you notice thoughts, because we just go along thinking thoughts and we believe them to be true because they're in our own head, when in reality none of them are true. No thought is actually true. If I think, everything you think is just an abstraction. The only reality is the present moment. And when you meditate, what you will notice is an absence. You're not adding something into your life, you're taking it away. So listening is the best form of meditation as well, because all there is silence. If you think that's the basis of everything, is silence. So there's silence, and then a bird might chirp, and it comes out of the silence and then disappears back into the silence. But the silence is what is present all the time. And the same with your mind. When you meditate, what is real and what is the baseline is basically emptiness of mind. The practice is called mindfulness, and really it should be called mind emptiness, I guess, because there's nothing in the mind, then a thought comes in. But that thought could be true or false, and then it goes. And then you could replace it with another thought. So you can't actually trust these thoughts. And that's what you realise. You start becoming the observer, and you notice. So mindfulness is kind of like recognising what the mind is full of. And usually the mind is full of a lot of distracting things that take you out of the present moment. And that's the point. If you have an empty mind and then you decide to focus on reading a book, well, that book is going to go into your mind. It's like, for example, back to the sound analogy. If you want to listen to a beautiful orchestra playing a song, well, it better be quiet to start with. If you've got babies crying and somebody like hitting a hammer against a wall, you can't really hear the orchestra. And that's how most of us operate. We're trying to have a conversation with like somebody running a Kango in the background, and it's all this noise. So in order to appreciate the orchestra, you must first have silence, and out of the silence a beautiful melody comes. And that's the same with our mind. In order to actually appreciate this book and the information that's in it, you must have an empty mind to start with, and then you can fill it with the information, and then you go back to emptiness. If your mind is already full, where's it going to go? So same with a conversation. If your mind is full of, oh, I want to do this, what have I got to do after this? You can't be present and actually be there for the conversation. And I think this is a chronic issue that is rampant. It's a big issue in our society, because you can fill your mind constantly. You can fill it with actual stimulus. So you got the radio, you jump in your car, you listen to the radio. There's always some kind of stimulus going into your mind. Then when you're sat waiting for the bus, you watch a YouTube video, and then there's always something you can fill your mind with, and it keeps going round, and then you try and have a conversation and it's very difficult. So this is the antidote to that. It's a very powerful tool. Meditation, mindfulness, and transcendental meditation. They're the three things I would try and look into, do your research, and try and practice. And it will allow you, it's a state of emptiness. It's a state of a baseline that you can then proceed from. So I hope that makes sense. I hope that helps. Let me know what your experience with meditation is, and give it a go. And set the barrier to entry very low. Just set 2 minutes a day, and know that part of the practice is having thoughts and then returning back to the breath. So as always, chop wood, carry water. Have a good day, boys. Speak to you tomorrow. Just to illustrate the point of suffering kind of being a choice, when I cut my hand with a chainsaw, I kind of used this as an opportunity to practice mindfulness and meditation. I decided it was quite a severe injury, but I decided I was going to try and see how long I could not take pain medication for. So I cut my hand with a chainsaw at about 6 p.m. So I had to go up to A&E, accident and emergency, and it was a very busy night, Saturday night, and I had to sit. They put me in a triage room, and I had a tea towel. I cleaned it under the tap, then had a tea towel wrapped around it. And when I was stood at the counter, waiting to kind of be seen, the person behind the desk didn't seem that bothered because I wasn't showing any sign that this is quite a severe injury. And they probably see loads of like horrendous things. But I'm just sat there and I could feel my leg twitching, obviously the adrenaline running around my body. And then they took me into the triage room and I unwrapped it to show the nurse. And straight away, as soon as I unwrapped it, she wrapped it back up, run out of the room, and then come back with like 3 doctors to come and have a look at it because it was a very severe injury. They were considering, I live on an island, they were considering flying me to Salisbury and getting plastic surgery because they thought that I was going to have to lose like a significant portion of my hand, if not remove a finger or something. So it was quite a severe injury. And I remember sitting there and they had me kind of outside, and I heard that there was a young girl who I think was being treated for cancer, and she was outside because there wasn't enough beds for her. So I said, well, give her my bed and I'll sit outside. So I'm just sat in the hallway with a very severe hand injury, and they decided against the plastic surgery and they was going to put me in for surgery the next morning. And probably about every half an hour I had somebody come round and was like, oh, have you had pain medication for that? And I hadn't, and I was like, no, I'm fine. And I did that consistently. So this is a severe injury, so the pain was real, but I decided not to suffer. So I was in pain, and when you think suffering is the thought that pain would be unbearable, but I was like, well, I'm bearing this, I can bear this pain, and I felt like I could bear it indefinitely. And I had random people, it seemed like just janitors and stuff like that, not janitors, we don't say that over here, what do we say? Just would come up, have a look at my hand, kind of flap it open, prod around in there, and then wander off. And then they'd come back, have another poke around. And they all assumed I'd had taken pain medication because of how stoic and not phased I was. And they were like prodding, like, oh, does it hurt? Is the pain medication okay? I was like, I haven't taken any. Because I used mindfulness and meditation to just breathe through the pain. So you can do this to quite a strong degree. This is very beneficial. And I did that the whole way through. So for, what was it, 6 p.m? For over 12 hours, I had sustained a chainsaw injury to my hand and had 0 pain medication. That shows the power of the mind. So yeah, I just thought I'd include that as a story because this is how it spills over into other areas of your life. You might find yourself in a situation. Now I had peace of mind because I knew at any moment I could get, because I was being offered morphine. At like 2 o'clock in the morning, this guy would come round every 2 hours and he would say, do you want some morphine for the pain? So, and I denied it, and I knew, but I had peace of mind because I knew if this gets too bad and I can't bear it, in 2 hours I have the opportunity to take pain medication, and tomorrow I'm going into surgery and the problem's going to be solved. Now, if I had a chainsaw out here in the woods and sustained the injury, I might be in a different position because now I'm stressed. I'm thinking I could bleed out, this isn't going to get solved. So I was in a very safe situation. At any moment I had doctors around me. But that's the power of your mind, and that's the power of choosing. That's the difference between pain. The pain was real, I was in pain, but I wasn't suffering. So I hope that helps.